Welcome into the conversation. I am your host, Adrienne Lawrence. And today I am joined by an award-winning author of a new book called Daughters of Smoke and Fire. That's Ava Huma. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, now Ava, I know in addition to being an author, you're an activist and a journalist. You have written collections of short stories that are also award-winning or at least nominated. And you have now put out a new book called Daughters of Smoke and Fire. Can you tell us what it's about?
Thank you for that introduction. Daughters of Smoke and Fire is the story of a Kurdish Iranian woman. Her name is Layla. She dreams of becoming a filmmaker, but there are a lot of obstacles on her way, her gender, her ethnicity, and so much more. And one day, her brother, Shia, takes part in a protest as they've been happening in Iran over the past decade and a half, and he disappears. Then it falls on Layla to be able to find out where he is, if he's alive, and how to help him. In the meantime, that puts her life in danger as well.
All right, and I know that protests are something very relevant right now, particularly in Iran, where there's this female evolution in terms of feminism and moving forward and making meaningful change. And so how do you feel that the story that you wrote resonates given the current environment that is going on right now?
So what is happening in Iran today is really powerful because it's for the first time that a large group of Iranians from different walks of life, from different backgrounds have been united in saying no to the oppressive government. And the book is relevant because I didn't know this while I was writing it, but the book talks about morality police, about getting arrested, about what's it like to be a young girl and being forced to wear the hijab. What's it like to belong to a group of people that have been targeted for genocide? What's it like to be so unknown and so oppressed and yet have all the desires, all the wish for a normal, joyful life that people around the world have?
And I know you're an activist as well as a journalist, and you come from Kurdish Iranian background. So is this something that you wrote about because you have that knowledge and experience directly?
Absolutely. It's about my knowledge and experience, but I also wanted to open a window to the life of Kurds in Iran, which is something that a lot of people don't have access to. There hasn't been authentic representation of that. And so something has been missing. And when there is talks of Kurds, there's only talks of oppression. What I was trying to show that is our lives aren't defined by oppression, but instead by our ability to stand up to oppression. I mean, look at what is happening in Iran today. Women started and led this revolution, but the resistance right now is at the heart of the Kurdish cities. The crackdown is so much heavier. The suffering is so massive in that part of the world. Any Kurdish mother I've been talking to recently haven't been able to speak 3 sentences without sobbing. The mother of these young protesters are really living in terror as they hear gunshots day and night against this peaceful protester who are demanding democracy and justice. However, if you look at whether in English, especially in the Western media, if you look at Kurds in Iran today, as this heavy crackdown is happening, there are only a handful of reports. So unfortunately, it goes unreported. It goes unreported because the Western world, for the most part, does not understand who Kurds are and where they come from. But the world knows that it would be a better place without the repressive Iranian government. And that can be achieved by supporting Kurds, by not allowing this crackdown to kill every brave person who's on the streets today. We've seen videos of convoys of IRGC loaded with troops heading toward Kurdish cities. People hear gunshots. There have been raiding of the homes. There have been hospitals not able to cure protesters. There have been reports of the blood that people donate to the hospitals being stolen by the government, so they allow the protesters to just bleed to death. But people are still resisting, and with them being in the forefront, it's really, really important that the world shows some support, because the only thing that would stop a government like the Iranian government from committing a genocide would be international attention.
Yes, and that definitely seems to be something that I've heard a lot about on social media in terms of keeping the messages going, ensuring that what is going on in Iran is something that is not, it's not ignored, that it's not something that can be silenced or just move on to the next, social justice issue that's going on in the world and in society. And so, if you were in a position where you could reach people to connect with them, to let them know about the Kurdish people and the women there who are fighting for change, what would you say to them?
I would say that they have been fighting against an extremely repressive, brutal government. For in the case of the Kurds, since its very inception, since 1979. And if you believe that you want to live in a world where there are fewer and fewer dictators, then it's on you to be able to be their voice, to raise your voice, to write to your representative, to make sure you include Kurdish art in your galleries, include Kurdish films in your film festivals, and understand who these people are and why they are so resilient. In Kurdish, we have this saying of "Bar khodan jiana," which means resistance is life, and it's not just something that we say with words. It's really a philosophy of life, right? And we have used that. This is why we have been able to rise out of our own ashes time and again, and look at a world ravaged by division and pandemic and class gaps and all of that. Kurds actually have a lot to teach the world. We know how to be strong. We know how to keep going. We know how to keep our balance again and again in life, despite all the forces that have been working against us.
Yeah, and it's beautiful to continue to have that pursuit, to have that resilience, but at the same time too, as I think you've kind of touched on, or at least hinted here, is that the Kurdish people have so much to give other than that. And unfortunately, in our Western society, at least the kind of the impression I've gotten is that it's a thought of Kurdish people constantly in struggle, or the thought that there's always war or conflict. And to embrace, as you said, the art, the work, the journalism, Daughters of Smoke and Fire, what you were putting out there, and the beauty of that. That is so much more that the Western culture also needs to embrace and welcome.
Absolutely. You said it all. I can't say it better than that. Thank you.
Without a doubt, because it's disheartening, the thought that it gets lost in the messaging that is provided here in the West. But at the same time, it's so incredibly important for people to continue to uplift the message about what's going on over there and the oppression that is going on. And so go ahead.
I just wanted to say that one of the moments of awakening post-pandemic was how illusory our borders are. So the sense of separation that we grew up in is really just nothing beyond a delusion. And going back to what Martin Luther King said all those years ago, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. People in the West need to understand that what happens to the Kurds is no longer only limited to them, that it is going to also indirectly affect them. So if they do want a better and fairer and more inclusive future for their children and for their descendants, they need to embrace and understand the role and the power and all the gifts that ethnic minorities have to offer, including the Kurds, and then create global policies that reflect everyone's humanity and not just a selected few.
Yes, absolutely. That is something I can get behind, and then some. And also, I would love to talk a little bit more in terms of your book, Daughters of Smoke and Fire. How has the reception been so far?
It's been remarkable. I am really overwhelmed by all the support that I received, the reviews, the awards that it's been nominated for, the award that it won. He won the Nautilus Book Award, and he was nominated for the William Saroyan International Prize. It has been called one of the best books in a lot of different venues, including the Wall Street Journal and other places. So I'm very grateful for all the love that I have received.
That's wonderful. And I know it is much deserved, and that people out there need to go ahead and go out and buy Daughters of Smoke and Fire and learn and uplift the messaging, and as well as in their social media, and whether it's representatives, continue to uplift the message of supporting the women and individuals there in Iran who are fighting for just justice, fighting for freedom, fighting to be able to live such that they are free of oppression. Is there anything else you would want to note or add that people should do?
So what media has offered has been just a slice of life for what it's like to be in Iran and to be a woman and to be Kurdish and to be young. But if people would like a literary representation of what's on the news, then Daughter of Smoke and Fire would be one of the good choices out there to offer depth and offer nuance and offer what's missing from media for the most part.
That's fantastic. Yes, Daughters of Smoke and Fire. Definitely check it out. I'm sure it's available everywhere books are sold, and you would be all the better for reading it. And I know we only have about a minute or so left, so I have to ask, as someone who has won so many awards with her writing and your journalism as well, what's next for you?
Well, I recently completed a second novel. My agent is trying to shop around, so hopefully I will be able to send that out into the world as well. That's another also untold story of Yazidis and the price that people pay when they're not known in the world, and how by just getting to know each other, we get to change so much. It's another story of resilience, of not allowing obstacles to defeat you, but instead use them to be stronger and just to be more resourceful. You know, people look at pain and suffering, and they all they want to do is to not only avoid the suffering, but also stay away from people who are suffering. The truth is, people who know grief deeply, they also have a depth of soul that is really rare and is very valuable in the world we live in. So do not be afraid to get out of your comfort zone and see what the rest of the world has to offer you, because that's how we grow. That's how we become strong. And that's how we understand our connection on a deeper level.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Ava Huma, the author of Daughters of Smoke and Fire. Thank you so much for joining us, Ava.
It was a pleasure, Adrienne. Thanks.